Hey, I'm hanging in there.
You're hanging in there. Me too, man. We're both dealing with this sinus bullshit. Man,
Yep, sniffing and snotting.
sniffing and snotting and man, yeah. Shit. Hopefully it'll get better here soon. It's that time of year. Kind of hitting
Yeah,
early though for me. Usually it the allergy season hits around April, but it's been warming up, man, down here in Florida pretty quick.
yeah, it's definitely kicking in earlier. I agree.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. So how y'all doing today, audience? We're gonna be talking about quantum tunneling, actually quantum effects. Quantum tunneling being one of them, quantum entanglement and quantum tunneling and different real quantum sort of science and theory.
And
But
how it relates to what
that's right.
the nose detecting disease.
That's right. So we've got people that have special super marvel superhuman superhero powers. And
Yeah.
so we'll be looking into that because that's pretty fascinating. Is quantum biology really a thing though? Because that's the field that actually studies this stuff. So we're going to be kind of looking at that as well as this one case where there's this one particular lady that science really can't fully explain the lady's superpower. So what she does as the thumbnail kind of or the show actually description actually kind of points to, she's got this amazing ability to use smell to detect diseases like Parkinson's disease and things of that nature, right?
Hmm.
And like it seems kind of weird that someone could smell that stuff on you. Now, have you ever heard of people or animals being able to do that? How you doing, Alex? Wonder if Alex can hear us yet. I don't think he can
Hello?
hear us. Hey, can you
Hello?
hear us, Alex?
Hello? Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah,
Oh,
he's unable to hear us, I think. So
hear me because I can't hear you.
yeah, I can hear you. You might need to go to your settings and your audio and select your headphones for the mic and in your headphones for the speaker. I don't, I don't know if he can hear us though. Can you hear me, Alex?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
I'm gonna
Come on
remove.
now, Alex. Change your settings. Damn. I
Yeah.
just yelled at him from the living room. I don't think he heard me.
Yeah. But anyways, so I think what we'll do
Yo, you were
is
going to ask a question. You said, have you ever?
yeah. Have you ever heard of like people or animals or anything like that able to smell diseases or in some
Yes.
cases when people are dying and things like that?
Yes, because I'm one of them.
Oh, okay. Interesting, man.
Yes,
So how does that
unfortunately.
mhm.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say what is that like? Like what is how does that work as far as you're concerned?
So it only happened to me twice in my life. And one time it was a guy that had diabetes
Uh-huh.
and he had it, I guess he had it very severely, but you couldn't really tell just looking at him. But I would say the smell came from his breath, and that's not really that uncommon.
Uh-huh.
But when I smelled it, it's this feeling of
Get
dread that overcame me because it smelled like death, and he did pass away. And then the
Oh.
second time that happened, it was a woman who had cancer, but she didn't tell anybody. And so one day she got in the car with me, and she was pretty close to me,
Uh-huh.
and the smell that came out of her when she was talking was like the smell of decay, and she died 3 months later,
Oh wow, man.
and I didn't even know
That's
she had cancer.
that is crazy. That is crazy. It'd be good if anyone ever has like some sort of ability like that or anomaly. I always encourage people, hey, go ahead and let science test you. You know what I mean? Like let's establish a lot of this stuff is real, because I think a lot of people don't really do that, and so a lot of this stuff goes up under the radar, so to speak. And so when you talk about these kind of things, people are never going to believe it because it's just not something that's normal.
Well, but it's been established, and we already know that certain dogs can smell cancer.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, that lady that we're about to go into, she was tested.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and try to present it because I haven't really seen it yet. Um, Let me share the screen and we will
She's a
go through it.
nurse from England, I believe.
Uh-huh. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get on into it, man, and let's see what this is all about.
At a conference in Edinburgh. When the talk was over, a woman at the back of the room stood up and raised her hand. Her name was Joy Milne, and she had a question, an unusual question. In fact, this question was so strange that at first Professor Kunoff didn't even really understand it. Joy, a nurse by profession, wanted to know if any research was being done to understand why people with Parkinson's smell different. A loss of sense of smell is a common symptom of Parkinson's disease, and initially Kunoff assumed Joy was referring to that. But no, she wanted to know why people with Parkinson's pong. Joy's husband, Les, had Parkinson's, and she believed the disease had changed his natural aroma. According to Joy, who claimed to have a particularly sensitive nose, her husband had always had a distinctive manly scent. But after developing Parkinson's disease, that smell had been replaced by something far less pleasant. Joy's question was so far out of left field that Kunoff didn't really know what to do with it, but he answered as best he could. So far as he knew, people with Parkinson's didn't smell any better or worse than anyone else. That's pretty much how they left it. But Joy's strange theory stayed with Kunoff weeks and months after the conference. She hadn't come across like some kind of crazy alternative medicine hippie. She had the matter-of-fact air of a trained medical professional, which is exactly what she was. And what really stuck with Kunoff was just how convinced Joy had been that Parkinson's had changed the way her husband smelled.
Are we frozen?
Scott, your mic is still off.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I had it muted because of these stupid cats. Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, or I was actually saying, a lot of people don't come forward and say stuff because they think what they're going through is just normal. Like they never think that these sort of abilities, things that we call anomalous abilities, are really all that special. So, like, there was this one case where a lady had synesthesia, which is that she could actually see things that she heard. So she was in a music class, and I think she mentioned something like, you know, the notes were in the colors red, like certain notes were in the color red, certain colors represented another note. And she had just mentioned that to the class, and everybody was like, what is she talking about? And she's like, no, when you all see blue, that's when you know whatever. And the instructor was like really confused, and then come to find out. And I think that's how they actually discovered what synesthesia was.
But
So a
doesn't
lot,
that also happen like on LSD and stuff like that?
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. It's something about the brain and how some people are just able to sense things a certain kind of way. It's just really weird. So this is kind of striking me in the same vein as that story, in a way.
Right.
Anyways, I'm going to keep on playing.
And, well, what if she was right? A few months later, Kunaf asked a colleague for a second opinion. That colleague was analytical chemist Perdita Baran, and while she was understandably skeptical about the idea of someone smelling Parkinson's disease, she didn't dismiss the idea completely. She knew that dogs had been trained to identify certain kinds of cancer through scent alone. If a dog can smell cancer, why couldn't a human smell Parkinson's? Actually, there was a obvious answer to that question. The average dog has a sense of smell between 100,000 and 1 million times more sensitive than a standard issue Homo sapiens. The most sensitive nose in the canine kingdom belongs to the bloodhound, a breed with a sense of smell 100 million times more sensitive than our own. Canine and human olfactory capabilities are universes apart, but both Thilo Kunaf and Perdita Baran were scientists. They knew better than to dismiss a hypothesis purely based on intuition and preconceived ideas. If they truly wanted to find out if Joy Milne could smell Parkinson's disease, well, they were going to have to test her. I recently took a 10-day trip to Norway from the UK, and I thought I was covered for roaming with my UK phone carrier, but when I returned home, my carrier had stung me with a £40 additional bill. That's why the next time I travel, I'll be using Airalo. Trusted by more than 15 million travelers worldwide, Airalo is the world's first eSIM store that solves the pain of high roaming bills by giving you access to eSIMs. And if you use my code 42, you'll get $3 off your first eSIM. Airalo was created you time and money. No more roaming fees, no more lines in the airport to purchase a local SIM card, no more hassle looking for a strong Wi-Fi connection. Also, when you charity Parkinson's UK in the description. A big...
All right, so I just needed to get past that little advertisement. So let me try to pick up where it comes back. There we go.
Baran were able to track down Joy via the charity Parkinson's UK, and they invited her to Edinburgh University to take part in a very unusual experiment. Along with Joy, there were 12 participants, 6 people who had Parkinson's, and a control group of 6 people who didn't. Each of them was instructed to wear a clean white t-shirt for a 24-hour period. They weren't allowed to use deodorant or perfumes of any kind to ensure their clothes smelt of them and nothing else. The t-shirts were then sent to a lab at the university where they were cut in half, placed in bags, and given to Joy. Her task was simple. All she had to do was give each half t-shirt a good old-fashioned sniff test and then deliver her verdict. Did the person who had worn that t-shirt have Parkinson's disease or not? It was a double-blind experiment, meaning neither Joy nor the researchers had any idea whether or not her selections were correct until the whole thing was over. And later that evening, the entire team sat down to look at the results for the first time. To everyone's utter amazement, Joy had correctly identified all 6 Parkinson's sufferers just by sniffing their t-shirts. She'd even managed to perfectly match every t-shirt with its other half. It was a stunning result, except for one small problem. Joy had made a mistake, incorrectly identifying a member of the control group as a Parkinson's sufferer. A single false positive amongst 12 was an incredible result, but it did leave at least some room for doubt.
Oh, well, that just proves it right there. She didn't know what she was doing.
Well, but there's a twist. Just keep going, because she wasn't even wrong, and we're going to find out why.
Yeah, I'm sure, because she's already hitting a good batting average.
With only 12 participants taking part in the study, it represented a small sample size. Perhaps Joy had just gotten lucky. Given her accuracy of over 90%, it seemed unlikely, but it couldn't be ruled out entirely. Despite the blip, Kunaf and Baran were impressed enough to want to continue their research into Joy's uncanny sense of smell. But in order to do that, they first had to answer an important question. What was Joy actually smelling? Parkinson's disease is caused by a loss of dopamine-producing neurons in a part of the brain called the substantia nigra. But clearly, Joy wasn't somehow smelling an absence of neurons, so what was she smelling? At the start of the experiment, everyone had assumed that if Parkinson's disease did indeed have a distinctive smell, it would originate in the sufferer's sweat. If that was the case, the scent should have been most potent in the armpit area of the t-shirts. But Joy insisted it was strongest around the neckline and across the upper back. And that pointed the research team another possible source of the scent. Not sweat, but sebum.
I had talked at Dylan's funeral on the 21st of December.
Now, I've always been under the impression that sebum is a famous Canadian bodybuilder and 6-time winner of Mr. Olympia, but it turns out it's actually an oily substance produced by our sebaceous glands that protects and lubricates our skin. So, Perdita Barran put together a follow-up study to hunt for potential anomalies in the sebum of Parkinson's sufferers. It was the next logical step to pinpoint exactly where the smell was coming from, but unfortunately securing funding proved to be practically impossible. Everyone who'd been involved in the original experiment was convinced Joy's unusual talent was worth exploring. But to the rest of the scientific community, things were a little less clear. The idea of sinking a load of cash into a project based solely on the superhuman sense of smell of a random pensioner just didn't sound like serious science. Add to that the fact that Joy's superlative sniffer had made a clear error the only time it was ever actually tested, and, well, nobody was interested.
Well, that's unfortunate, how people react, you know. And like science is for me, it's like a good scientist should be able to turn over any rock, no matter how ridiculous it may seem. Like even anomalies seem to be something you'd be more interested in looking at. Like that's really what you'd be going for if you really want to learn more about reality.
Yeah, you got to be open-minded to a certain extent. You can't be dogmatic when it comes to science.
Yeah, because the truth, like we had talked about, the truth can stand the most rigorous of testing, and if it's not true,
Hmm.
then you'll find out and you've learned something. So, you may learn something else that you didn't foresee. So I don't understand why there's so much um, resistance to new anomalies and things you hear about.
Yeah, sometimes you have to look in a different direction. Sometimes certain circumstances take you into another direction, even if you
Yeah,
think it's not possible.
exactly. What do you think, Alex? I haven't talked to you today because we've been trying to get everything together. So at the last minute, how's it going, man?
Doing all right, and yeah, I have some thoughts on this. Like
Yeah,
when it comes to science and scientific consensus, uh, sometimes like a young or ambitious scientist might be want to come out with some type of a study or a conclusion from a study that just completely overturns, what was the established scientific consensus. So might be a little quick to make such a judgment, and then through additional testing, it might come out that, well, that may have been a bit premature to come to that conclusion, and then then walk it back a little bit.
hmm,
And but other times, the established scientific consensus can be just wrong or flawed, and it needs to be revised. But since it has been held as a scientific consensus for so long, then there is an inherent resistance to changing that model that's
yeah,
accepted.
kind of like religion, you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think ultimately it kind of tears down people's worldview that they place their stock into already. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. And you know,
Nobody wants to start from scratch, you know?
again, yeah, because then you got to account for all the other things you've spent so many years developing, you know, to understand certain things, and then one little thing is supposed to come along and demolish all that. Like now you got to go back and explain. But you know, that's science. You
And
know,
sometimes,
science.
exactly, that's real science, but sometimes it's also not profitable, right?
Yeah, yeah, I can see that too.
yep.
That's what happens, man. Anyways, I'm gonna keep on, and I'm curious to see what they're gonna find out here.
Anne was ultimately forced to shelve the project indefinitely, and that would have probably been the end of it if it were not for a chance meeting 8 months later that changed everything. Professor Kunoff was back in Edinburgh for another Parkinson's conference when he bumped into someone familiar. At first, he couldn't quite place the man, but once they got talking, he realised who it was. A bloke called Bill, one of the participants in Joy's infamous T-shirt sniff fest. To begin with, Kunoff couldn't understand why Bill was there. He'd been part of the experiment's control group. He didn't have Parkinson's. So, what was he doing at a Parkinson's conference? You guessed it, it's plot twist time! Thanks to what can only be described as a monumental coincidence, just months after the experiment, Bill had been given a shock diagnosis. He did have Parkinson's disease. Professor Kunoff could hardly believe his ears. As soon as he was able to, he checked his records from the original experiment, but he already knew what he would find. Bill was the so-called false positive, Joy's only mistake. Turns out, he did have Parkinson's all along. The implications of this chance revelation were monumental. Not only did it mean Joy had aced the experiment after all, but her nose was apparently so absurdly sensitive it had diagnosed someone with Parkinson's before the disease was detectable by modern medicine. It was a genuinely astonishing discovery. But looking back, it probably shouldn't have come as much of a surprise. Joy had first noticed a change in her husband Les's natural aroma in 1982 when he was just 31 years old. But back then, she didn't know what was causing it. To begin with, she just figured he wasn't washing enough. Les wasn't officially diagnosed with Parkinson's until 12 years later. But even then, Joy still didn't connect the smell with the disease. Why would she? Over the years living with Parkinson's, Les's symptoms became progressively more severe, and in 2009, the couple joined a kind of Parkinson's support group to seek comfort in the solidarity of other sufferers. The very first meeting of that support group changed Joy's life. Because the moment she stepped into that room, it hit her. The very same smell she'd first detected on her husband's skin 27 years earlier. Every single person in the room smelled exactly the same.
Wow. So that means she could probably meet people in public and smell that on them. And then, you know, she should be out there like telling everybody, hey, man, you got Parkinson's disease, you know, or something. You know,
But imagine how groundbreaking that would, exactly how groundbreaking that could be. It could help treat diseases way before it gets out of hand, like way before, because we're talking, she smelled it on her husband 12 years prior before he was even had symptoms.
Yeah, that's sad. So I didn't know not taking a shower caused Parkinson's disease. That's weird.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
You just fucking fucked my head up, like, huh?
Yeah. Like, huh? 'Cause she asked, did you shower today?
Yeah, trying to make sure people are paying attention.
Yeah. Wake up.
Can't fit in those jeans? Be careful with beans.
All right, let's talk about beans, that musical fruit.
Joy diagnosed Bill's Parkinson's disease several months before the doctors did, but she had unknowingly diagnosed her husband's 12 years before modern medicine. The fact Joy can detect Parkinson's through scent alone is remarkable, but the fact she can do so incredibly early is a potential game changer. One of the biggest obstacles in treating Parkinson's disease is that it is almost always detected years or even decades after it first appears. The reason for that is simple. The kinds of symptoms people are likely to notice, slight tremors, muscle stiffness, a minor change in gait, they only show up when the disease is already relatively advanced. By that point, 60 to 80% of dopamine-producing neurons in the substantia nigra are already gone. In other words, by the time most people realize they have Parkinson's, a huge amount of unrecoverable damage has already been done. Joy's ability to detect the disease so early had the potential to revolutionize not just the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, but also the treatment. By this point, Joy's incredible story was already starting to attract the attention of the press. Add to that what was now looking like a near miraculous performance in that first test, and Perdita Barran suddenly found funding for a new study much easier to come by. She collected sebum samples from thousands of Parkinson's sufferers, then used a technique called gas chromatography mass spectrometry to separate and measure the various different compounds those samples contained. Through that process, she identified 3 distinct compounds that appear in significantly elevated levels in the sebum of Parkinson's sufferers: icosane, hippuric acid, and octadecanol. Joy was able to confirm that each of those compounds matched the scent profile she associated with Parkinson's disease. Based on those findings, Barran and her team have developed a simple swab test that, in early lab tests, is able to diagnose Parkinson's disease with 97% accuracy. Further tests are required both to confirm those results and to explore how early diagnoses can be made using this technique. But early signs are promising, and there are already plans to make the swab test available in hospitals around the world. There are even hopes that it might one day be used to screen entire populations for Parkinson's disease to ensure it is diagnosed as early as possible. It is now beyond question that Joy can diagnose Parkinson's disease through scent alone. But that remarkable fact leads to an obvious question. What about other diseases? Can she smell those too?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. I wonder, why is it just Parkinson's disease? That's kind of weird.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, but maybe that's how it works, and well, we'll figure this out. Let's keep on going.
Actually, yes, she can. As of today, Joy has demonstrated an ability to detect Alzheimer's disease, tuberculosis, cancer, and diabetes, all through scent alone. If you've been to the cinema in the last decade or so, you'll probably have noticed that one genre dominates: superheroes. Marvel films alone made up a frankly ridiculous 30% of the US box office in 2021. But as I hope this video demonstrates, you don't need to go to the cinema to see superheroes. At least one is already living amongst us. She can't fly or turn herself invisible, but as far as I'm concerned, Joy Milne's remarkable ability to smell deadly diseases and potentially help us fight them absolutely qualifies as a genuine superpower.
Germans have figured out a way to increase water pressure by 15 times.
Some amazing stuff right there. Get this video ready. Yeah, that's crazy. I just like to look at the quantum effects and how that makes that possible. Let's finish out the video. And by the way, in the audience, if anyone has suggestions for other videos and topics, you can always message me or send us some information in the comments. We'd like to take a look at what you've got, man, and go over it. Let me keep this going.
Book fan knows, with great power comes great responsibility, and that is certainly true for Joy. These days, she is understandably quite a high-profile figure in the world of Parkinson's, and through her advocacy, she travels the world, meeting thousands of people along the way. Naturally, some of the people she meets suffer from the horrible disease Joy's nose is so uniquely able to identify. Some of them likely already know they're ill, but some of them do not. And that gives Joy one hell of a moral dilemma. Would you want to know you have Alzheimer's disease, which has no known cure, years before its effects become apparent? Would you want that knowledge hanging over you? For most people, that question probably doesn't have a straightforward answer, and Joy has ultimately decided to take a non-disclosure policy. If she smells the telltale scent of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease on the skin of someone she meets, she keeps that knowledge to herself. She's decided she doesn't have the right to tell people news they might not want to hear. I can only assume it must be incredibly hard for her to meet someone and immediately know that great pain and suffering lies in wait for them in the future. As of today, nobody knows why Joy's nose can do what it does. She is indisputably hyperosmic. That's the name given to someone with an unusually sensitive sense of smell. But even amongst hyperosmics, she seems to be practically unique. Joy's husband Les passed away in 2015 at the age of 65. His life with Parkinson's disease was not an easy one, but through that great personal tragedy, Joy discovered a gift that may eventually change the way Parkinson's disease is diagnosed and treated forever. Thanks for watching.
Amazing, man. That is really
Yeah.
interesting right there.
Yeah,
Um,
it does put you in a predicament. Since there's no cure for it, why even tell a person? But I think it would come in handy for diseases that can be cured, especially when you detect them early.
yeah, yeah, that is, and and how that happens, because it seems like if they could figure out how she's able to do that, you could actually design, you know, uh, technology, because obviously not everybody
Yeah,
has that ability.
But they did talk about that in the video, saying that the scientists that studied it, they collected the sebum samples and they analyzed them with gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, I believe it was what it's called.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
and that's definitely amazing when something can inspire us to develop technology that's better for detecting and measuring things, especially regarding diseases that can be pretty harmful.
Yeah.
but why
But
not just use people that can do it?
Yeah. If
well,
they could find those
unfortunately,
people.
not everybody can. But what if we could,
I said the
just
people that can do it. Like you
well,
could practically set up a database of a collection of people that can do it. Like if you believe that you can do it, you could come forward, you could be tested, and you could be added to that database. That could be a new job description. I mean, they use dogs for that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
nowadays.
Yeah, they could work in hospitals and stuff.
So I'm just saying we shouldn't necessarily just bypass the human beings that actually know how to do it.
right.
Exactly.
I know, and I'm in agreement on that.
Absolutely. I'm going to start playing this other video that talks about the quantum nose. I got to step off for a minute. I'm dealing with my own quantum nose right now. Just just a
Your
second.
quantum nose is clogged up.
Yeah, it's collapsing.
Theory suggests that our noses might work like tiny spectrometers, detecting how molecules vibrate rather than just their shapes. Traditionally, it was thought that smells depend on molecules fitting into receptors, like a key fitting into a lock. But this doesn't explain why molecules with the same shape can smell different. For instance, hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs, while its heavier twin, deuterium sulfide, smells noticeably different, even though they look almost identical. Similarly, carbone molecules have two mirror image forms. One smells like mint and the other like caraway. This theory proposes that receptors listen to the molecular vibrations, like recognizing a song by its melody rather than the instrument. It's a bit like tasting chocolate and recognizing its flavor not just by its shape, but also by the unique buzz of its molecules. Traditionally, it was thought that smells depend on molecules fitting into receptors, like a key fitting into a lock. But this doesn't explain why molecules with the same shape can smell different. For instance, hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs, while its heavier twin, deuterium sulfide, smells noticeably different, even though they look
Why is he
almost
saying
identical.
the same thing?
Similarly,
Are
carbon
you hearing this,
molecules have
Alex?
two mirror image forms. One smells like mint and the other like caraway. This theory proposes that receptors listen to the molecular
Yes.
vibrations, like recognizing a song by its melody rather than the instrument. It's a bit like tasting chocolate and recognizing its flavor, not just by its shape, but also by the unique buzz of its molecules. It's a bit like tasting chocolate and recognizing its
wow.
flavor, not just by
Wow.
its shape, but also by the unique buzz of its molecules.
Introduction to the quantum smell theory. How do we perceive odors? The sense of smell involves olfactory receptors located in the nasal epithelium, which detect volatile molecules.
Hey, is this guy
The
still
classical
repeating
lock and
himself?
key model posits that molecules fit into receptor binding sites based on their shape,
Yeah,
similar to a
yeah.
key fitting into a lock.
Hmm.
However,
Does
this model
anyone
struggles
have,
to
like, a
explain
tab
phenomena
open or
such as
something like that?
enantioselectivity and
Or maybe I
isotopic
do.
discrimination. The quantum smell theory suggests that olfactory receptors function as spectrometers, detecting the vibrational energy levels of odorant molecules, much like how infrared spectroscopy works. Example: isotopomers such as hydrogen sulfide H2S and deuterium sulfide D2S smell
Oh
different even
man,
though their
this is
shapes
so
are virtually
redundant.
identical.
Can you please?
This suggests the
Yeah.
receptors
I
detect
feel like I'm in a ring of hell.
I don't know what's going on, man.
A ring of hell where they'd say things that are identical or so close, like you just like continually experiencing deja vu until you
Yeah.
become insensitive to the deja vu and you think that you're actually going crazy
I
and it's
think we're
just in your
actually
mind
quantum
being
tunneling
repeated.
into the past or something.
No, I think that's just what happens sometimes when people make videos with AI or a fucking AI goes rogue and it tries to make its own
Goes rogue.
videos and then it just repeating the same shit and then sometimes it'll word it slightly differently and
That's crazy, man.
What did Al Harding say? Can we read his comment real quick?
Yeah, sure. So he says, neat, seeing how the production evolves over time, much better format as it gives an overview of a topic to be covered. Most think they are brilliant, but they are not. Stay away from rabbit holes.
What do you
all right,
mean with
thank
that?
you.
Mm,
I think he's saying that he's liking the way that our show is progressing over time,
yeah.
getting better.
I mean, what about that
So
last little
thank you.
commentary?
Stay away from rabbit holes. I don't know. You know, Al Harding, man, he speaks in riddles. he's like the
Well, I
the
think
don't-
I think he's just talking about
He don't do-
topics that are like so deep that like it
He's a
takes a long
materialist.
time to explore and you could easily get lost and stuff and
Mhm.
He's probably a materialist and doesn't want to entertain things that seem irrational to him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's what we do. We're like rabbit voyagers out here, man.
Right? We're Alice in Wonderland all day long.
All day, baby. If you want to get your rabbit hole on, come over to the discussion, because that's where you go.
that does not sound right, man. Get your rabbit hole on.
Let's
should-
get us
you
into
should
some
turn
rabbit
that-
holes.
So we should make T-shirts with that slogan. So
no,
please notate that.
no,
Hell yeah!
terrible.
Get your rabbit hole on. I love it.
Yeah, get your rabbit hole on.
Y'all wrong.
That's
Y'all
funny.
wrong for that.
Y'all come up with some good. in the audience.
Oh,
Y'all
oh,
put it in the
oh.
chat. What's some good T-shirts we can make? Man?
See, Sammy confirmed that he's definitely a materialist. Told you. Thanks, Sammy.
I don't know if Al's still in here, but Al, are you a materialist or not, man? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but
He already checked out. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
okay. Oh well. Yeah, man. So I was trying to show something about quantum knows how that might be tied into it. But you know, the quantum mechanics, that whole thing, quantum theory, for a lot of people, they can't understand it. I think there was even a quote. I think it was Wheeler who said, "Anyone who thinks they understand quantum mechanics doesn't understand quantum mechanics." So it's like,
It's definitely.
yeah, it's got a lot of interpretations, and you know, and and we were just kind of discussing materialism and idealism earlier this week with someone, and we got into like the wave particle duality. Like we went really down the rabbit hole.
But
And
see, that's the key thing in
I think that go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I've been trying to wrap my mind around it all morning, and that's kind of the key thing you have to focus on when it comes to quantum tunneling, is the wave particle duality aspect of it.
yeah, man. Yeah, because on the many worlds theory, the wave function is not considered physical, but a probability distribution, whereas on the more popular Copenhagen interpretation, it's not physical, or the other way around. I'm sorry. So many worlds theory, it is physical because it's basically a probability that's actuating in some other universe. So the other universe is physical. So they're saying the wave function's physical. And on materialism, this works because under materialism, or physicalism as they call it nowadays, the only thing that exists is physical things.
But see, that just confuses me, because me and Alex had this, or Alex and I'm sorry for my fucked up grammar.
Oh my God, how improper of you.
Alex and we had this we had this discussion earlier in the car, right? And he was like, well, how do they know, like, the whole scenario about the ball hitting the wall and then it bounces off, and for some reason though, with quantum tunneling, it gets through the wall, but it's not really that it really gets through the wall. And so that's where I was like, well, what the fuck is it doing then, right? So we talked about that, and basically it's saying that there are two more probabilities at once, right? And so it's like the particle is in two places at one time. It's bounces off the wall, but it's also on the other side. And so Alex was like, well, that can't happen, because the particle can't be in two places at once. And how do they know it's the same particle? And that's a good question. So I looked it up and tried to see what the answer to that could be. But I also thought about what happens to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just consider it, whoever believes it or not, right? This is what happens to me. Someone may die, right, in a car accident, which would happen to me, in a whole nother state, and I, for some reason, had a dream that somebody was drowning at the time that this person died, and found out the next morning that this person died in a car accident, and the car went over the bridge and they drowned in the river. So the question is, how could I have access that, event? Event sounds kind of insensitive because somebody died, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
While I'm laying in my bed a couple of states away. So there has to be a part to me that is like that non-wave. What do you call it, Alex? Help me out.
particle wave
the
duality.
way, yeah, wave function duality. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how is it that my mental or the mental aspect of me could be present at the same time somewhere else, even though my body is here, right?
Yeah, it's like remote viewing.
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe that ties into how, you know, the quantum tunneling works. It's not that my body, the physical part of me is somewhere else at the same time, but the part of me that's non-material can be somewhere else at the same time. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Sammy says, I had a
yeah, go ahead.
random dream about mine and Steve's friend egg roll the other day, and the very next day he saved a baby that was left on the side of the road.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there, Sammy. Stuff like that. It seems like it makes no sense, but then when we look into quantum mechanics, we seem to find processes on a quantum level that coincide with our experiences. Those of us who have those kind of experiences.
It's things that we call synchronicities. And just really quickly, I wanted to clarify about the discussion / argument that Sophia and I had earlier in the car before the show started, as it pertains to what we're talking about here on the show. So she was talking about like this a possibility of a single particle existing in multiple places at the same time, and what I was saying is that I believe in the possibility or the probability of the phenomenon that is described as quantum entanglement. Like I believe in that. Like, sure, plausible, okay. But what I'm not convinced of is that entangled particles are actually can ever be proven that they are the same particle. Like, you know,
Okay,
I can accept.
Isn't it proof that if you do something to one particle or, you know, a part of the same particle, it happens to the other half of it?
Yeah, it's there's an experiment. It's called the Bell's inequality, and they tested for like all these different loopholes, like Alex, like what you're talking about. So what they do is they get the same particle, they entangle those particles, they isolate those particles, and then they move one of the particles like to a far off island. Like I think they had like a way to actually send that particle far, far away. You know, it doesn't really matter how far. I mean, distance is just relative. But they'd send one particle off, one of the entangled particles off, and then they would change the, you know, the spin or something like that of the particle, and it would automatically communicate with the other particle immediately at the, you know, faster than light travel. So we know that, you know, something about quantum mechanics sort of breaks physics as we understand it. And so they've kind of called it like classical physics versus quantum physics, like
Right.
two different physics. So like
stuff that doesn't really go along with classical physics or seems to break.
It still doesn't integrate. Like they're still trying to figure out how to, like, what about gravity? How does gravity fit?
Well, with the quantum tunneling thing, you know, there seems to be some kind of gap or opening that lasts just long enough. And I was thinking, in theory, what if it has to do also with quantum entanglement, though? Because, like, I noticed a pattern whenever I have these kind of dreams. It's not really random people. I'm usually connected to them in some form. For example, in that case, it was my son's father's nephew who passed away. So there's a connection between me and the uncle of the person that passed away. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Another time it was a guy who tried to commit suicide and shot himself in the head, and I experienced it as if I got shot in the head. and it was in a dream, and I woke up and I had all the physical sensations. I was able to hear the bullet go through my head, and I was telling Alex, I don't know what in the fuck this just was, right? And then it turns out a person the next day, we found out that there was a person that shot themselves in the head. So the connection would have been the people that Alex is connected to that knew the person that killed themselves. You see, there's always some kind of connection and entanglement. It's not just random people.
Yeah, and you know, have you ever heard of quantum computers?
Yes.
Yeah, so like quantum computers, for anybody that may not know, like quantum computers can process like big data significantly faster than your traditional computers because they exploit properties like superposition and entanglement, and it allows them to perform calculations on multiple like data points simultaneously at the same time using qubits or quantum bits, and these exist in multiple states at once, unlike classical bits, which are either 1 or 0 and process, you know, one at a time. And so that enables them to handle vast amounts of data with much greater efficiency. So this superposition and this entanglement creates like this super power for the computer, you know. And
Wow.
and you know, we humans, nature, I mean, we kind of like understand now that, you know, the universe is full of computers, you know. Everything computes. Even I think there's a researcher, his name is Seth Lloyd. I'll play a video from him in a little bit, but you know, even like 15, 20 years ago, he came up with that idea that the universe is a quantum computer itself. You know, that's what it does. It computes quantum information, and that quantum information evolves and brings about all this complexity that we see in the world. You know, it's all on account of the quantum mechanics,
Right.
computing. So he was kind of like a pioneer of quantum computing, actually. So it's kind of really interesting on that. But I have this video here that kind of gets back to the topic of, we were talking about quantum tunneling. Well, there's one thing we do know where quantum tunneling actually does have an effect in nature, and it's in photosynthesis. So I wanted to kind of show how that works real quick.
The leaf, it turns out, is a remarkable piece of technology. Light lands on a leaf in quantum energy packets called photons. Every second it spends in bright sunlight brings a leaf thousands of trillions of photons. And almost every one of the red ones is captured and its energy processed. Let's trace the path of that energy through the plant. The first stop is the antenna, an assembly of hundreds of thousands of chlorophyll molecules. Hit by the photon, an electron within the chlorophyll will become excited and use the extra energy to bounce through the antenna to a bridging area. This is composed of a complicated arrangement of chlorophyll molecules. You can imagine it as an intertwined maze of rope bridges that, if you can find the path through, lead to the all-important reaction center. Once at the reaction center, the electron creates a permanently separated charge that is essentially energy that can be stored. It's the same thing that makes a fully charged battery such a useful source of power. At that point, the energy is safe and properly stored, ready for use by the plant. There's just one catch. The reaction center is a nearly impossible place to reach. Getting through the bridging area is a nightmare, and it has to be done quickly. The maze of wobbly rope bridges will absorb all the photon's energy if it takes too long to find the reaction center. A packet of energy has about 1 nanosecond to get across the bridge. Some might chance upon the right path and make it through in time. Most, though, won't. This is where the quantum tricks and Gregory Scholl's research team comes in. Their conclusion? Our result is that the energy of absorbed light resides in two places at once. This weird phenomenon is officially known as quantum superposition. It is written into the mathematics of quantum theory, which describes the position of a particle only in terms of probabilities of finding it in various different places. In certain circumstances, the particle can occupy multiple positions at once. And it turns out that to achieve the remarkable efficiency of photosynthesis, algae and their evolutionary descendants, plants, employ quantum superposition so that the energy can simultaneously travel along all possible paths to the reaction center. That way, it always gets there on time. As far as we understand it, when a photon of sunlight hits a leaf, its energy is passed to electrons within the leaf's chlorophyll molecules. Those excited electrons move to the reaction center not by random hops, as was thought, but by exploiting their quantum mechanical ability to take all available paths at the same time. It's such an exciting discovery because it raises the possibility that we could do the same. If the messy world of biology can exploit this quantum mechanical trick to the maximum by evolutionary trial and error, perhaps we can deliberately engineer the same feats to occur in our own solar panels.
That's wild, man. How did Jesus
Well, you're gonna
know how
have
to use that?
you're gonna have to break that down in layman terms for dumb people such as myself.
Yeah. So it's like there's a probability, right, of
I don't
it
see
getting.
y'all.
Oh, hold on one second. I'm sorry. All right. So I think I'm gonna give it my best shot from what I understand. So with quantum superposition, it means that there's all these probabilities, right? It's called a probability distribution. So it can take all these probabilities and exploit them all at the same time, kind of like the quantum computer thing. Like I
And
said,
probabilities is like saying there's a chance, right?
yeah, like there's a 5% chance if you go here. There's a 10% chance if you go there. You know, and it's got
Okay.
everything mapped out from the beginning. And then what happens is, I guess it sort of actuates all at the same time. And so
What do
the
you mean
one
with
that's
actuate?
like, it's sort of like if you it processes the bits like the quantum energy. Like in this case, it'd be the quantum energy that it got from the sun or whatever. So that sun needs to go to that center of the plant so that it can actually do its work. But the problem is the location of that center is you've only got, like, what do you say, a nanosecond or less to get there. So it's there's just not enough time. So in order for plants to do their thing, get off the ground, somehow there has to be some mechanism that will figure that out instantaneously, where that energy needs to go and how to get there. So because quantum mechanics works on infinite probabilities, it knows exactly somewhere in those infinite probabilities there's a way to get there, from what I understand. And then it gets there instantaneously. It's the reason why quantum computers can process so fast, way faster than your regular computer, because it uses this superposition of probabilities. So if you kind of,
Okay.
hopefully, I maybe I'll pull something up about that. Hold on. How does quantum tunneling do photosynthesis?
Well, I can think about it in terms of electricity because I have some knowledge of the theory when it comes to like electrical systems. So let's just say that you have a power source like your power that's coming from a power plant you pay a power company to have service, and then it comes through the lines, through the transformer into your building, right? And then it enters
Device.
the panel. No, it enters the electrical panel to be distributed to your different circuits, and then from a circuit, the power is available at the electrical receptacles that you have. All right, and now you have a device that can be plugged in that can use the electricity of that uh, wattage and voltage. Like, it's like, okay, I'm ready to use energy in this form, and then you plug it in. But if when you plug it in, unless it has something that's converting the alternating current to direct current, it's not automatically using anything right away. But then whenever you turn it on, then it has an actual load, something that is consuming that power to do work, right? So then you have these components. You have your power in, and then your load, and then your load is effectively drawing power from the source. So in a sense, you could say that it's like that. That the
But just using quantum principles to do
what
the
do you
same
call it?
work.
The chlorophyll and the chloroplasts are actually not just a possibility where the light could go, but in a sense, it's like they are drawing it, because they have a purpose. They have a job to do. Like, they're trying to get some work accomplished, which is powering and growing the organism, right? So they already have a load, right? They're expecting to do the work, and so um, by that very notion, they are drawing that in. So more than just a possibility or a probability, it creates a pull to where it manifests into like an inevitability. You see what I'm saying?
Right. So I've got this pulled up here for describing how quantum um, tunneling works. It says in photosynthesis, quantum tunneling allows for highly efficient energy transfer within the light harvesting complex by enabling electrons to tunnel through potential energy barriers between pigment molecules, effectively exploring multiple pathways at the same time to find the most efficient route to the reaction center where the energy is used to convert light into chemical energy. And this process significantly enhances the overall efficiency of photosynthesis compared to a purely classical mechanism. So it's just like transferring the stuff instantaneously, I guess, is the whole idea that it's able to do. So
Well, it's
that's
still
really
limited
wild,
by
man.
the speed of light travel, and the travel speed limitations of particles when it gets to particle excitation. Like uh the speed of a photon is limited by the speed of light, which is just like wavelength of light.
Yeah.
But and then the speed of electrons, I think, can come close to the speed of light, but it might be like slightly slower than what the actual speed of light itself is. But for a lot of calculations, for all intents and purposes, you could say that it's effectively electrons can travel at the speed of light, even though it's just slightly slower.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are inherent limitations once you factor in like mass for particles. Then it has to move like a physical a material, and it can't be at exactly instantaneously or like even at the full speed of light, but the decision to take a certain pathway theoretically could be instantaneous.
Wow. Yeah. So that's the same with quantum entanglement. Are you guys familiar really with how that works? I've got a video for that too, real short one. If you want to
Okay,
check
I'm
it out.
sorry because I have a hard time grasping this stuff, and so I want to see if this is pretty
Okay.
accurate, just so I can
Sure.
wrap my mind around it.
Absolutely.
It says an analogy of the ghost in the wall, right? Imagine a ghost trying to walk through a solid wall. In classical physics, in our everyday experience, this is impossible. The wall is a solid barrier. But in quantum physics, in the quantum world, particles have a wave-like nature, which means they have a probability of being in different locations. This means there's a chance that the particle could tunnel through the wall and appear on the other side like a ghost passing through a solid object. And it says basically, it's not that it's really going through the wall though, right? It's just saying that because of its wave like nature, it could exist potentially at in different places at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to get that straight so I know what's going on here.
Yeah, because that's why we say waves aren't really physical, because waves, particles, which are physical, if they bump into a wall, they get stopped. If they can't go through the wall, they're not going to go through the wall. It's
Right.
going to take a lot of energy for it to either get through the wall or go over the wall or whatever. Whereas a wave is working off probabilities and non-locality.
So because it has both qualities, of the quality we call wave like function is the part that actually can end up in a different place or get over the wall.
Yep.
Which it's not really getting over the wall, it just could exist on the other side, right?
Yeah, it exists on the other side, right? So it's a probability where it's there, here, everywhere.
So it's not that
Sorry
anything
about that, Joel.
it's not that from my understanding that anything physical can be in two places at the same time, but it has a probability of existing in two places at a given time.
Yeah, but that's what I was
that's what I
was differentiating
you're just going
between.
based off of the
That's what I was
probability and the manifestations. Different analogies that we could take to kind of understand this.
Okay, but
we can look at
I don't mean to be
classical physics example
Alex,
of like
God damn.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be rude, but it sounds to me like you're bypassing the most important part, which is the wave function. It's not that the particle ends up on the other side. It's like an aspect of the particle, which is the wave function.
Here, I'm going to look it up, and we're going to share it right on the screen. Hold on. That way that we know. Controversy about this. Hold on. The universal wave function. Y'all can see it. All right. So it reads, the universal wave function is a quantum mechanical concept that describes the entire universe as a single wave function. It's a fundamental part of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Okay. So again, that's kind of like, well, let's look at wave function. I think universal wave function, I got confused. Wave function. What is the wave? In quantum mechanics, a wave function is a mathematical description of a quantum state of a particle as a function of momentum, time, position, and spin. So, yeah, the Schrodinger equation describes the wave function, right? And it's got this little short equation right here. So Sophia knows how to read that. So I'm going to let her interpret that equation. Go ahead.
Shut the hell up. I don't know. I do not know how to do this, and I am not ashamed. This is a complete mind fuck to me, and that's all there's to it. And we don't.
Gotcha. Well, you know, and I think it is for everybody. That's the whole thing. We need to really simplify it. So it kind of does that. It says the properties of a wave function. All measurable information about the particle is available. It says all measurable information about the particle is available. The wave function should be continuous and single valued. Using the Schrodinger equation, energy calculations become easy. Probability distribution in 3 dimensions is established using the wave function. The probability of finding a particle if it exists. I'm not sure if I understand all that.
Why don't we do it like this?
Well,
ask the question, what are the attributes of wave function, and see what it actually does, or what is this definition for that?
Attributes of the wave function. All right.
Because I mean that's how I ask questions to get answers.
Yeah, you just got to go to the chat, the AI.
I mean, you could look it up anywhere, really. It doesn't have to be a chat bot, but if you want to get straight to the thing that's baffling us, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So AI says here, a wave function in quantum mechanics is characterized by being single valued. I'm not sure what that means. Continuous, finite, and normalizable, meaning it must have a single value at meaning it must have a single value at any given point in space, be continuous without sudden jumps, not approach infinity, and when squared, its integral overall space must equal 1, representing the total probability of finding particle in the system. So I guess that kind of goes along with once you observe it, it collapses into a position. You know.
I guess, because I did not understand that.
Yeah, quantum mechanics is not easy to understand, and it requires a lot of education. Maybe we'll get like Caleb said, Scott, get Sean Carroll on here. Shouldn't be an issue for you. Yeah, exactly, man. I'll give him a call right now.
We need somebody who grasps this shit.
I mean, yeah, him.
I was going to attempt to explore these concepts of quantum mechanics using analogies, starting with things from classical physics, such as the states of matter that we're aware of, right? So we
can't see you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But,
shoot, I keep forgetting to do that. Hold on.
Okay, so in classical physics, in the macroscopic scale, or even on the microscopic scale, but not on the quantum level, right? We have states of matter. We have solids. We have liquids. We have gases, and we have plasma, which are basically a collection of particles in a particular energetic state and distribution. Of course, we know that something solid, it maintains its shape and size to a fairly consistent set of parameters, right? And then something that is liquid, it at a given temperature, it maintains the same volume, but of course it can change its shape to fill whatever cavity, right? And then a gas, it can change its shape and it can change its volume, expanding or contracting to fill a given cavity, right? And then plasma is just like gas, but it's more excited because it has like some kind of additional electromagnetic energy on, like, that makes it a higher level of excitement than gas. All right, so we also recognize matter changing between the different states when a solid a matter in a solid state transitions to being in a liquid state. Call this melting. The material has a melting point at a given temperature
Like a
transition
singularity.
range. Yeah, at a given temperature transition range, it transitions from being organized as a solid to being organized as a liquid. At a given temperature transition range, it transitions from being a liquid to being a gas, right? So, we expect that a material at a standard temperature and pressure is going to stay a liquid, and it should not become a gas until it surpasses the boiling point where it's supposed to transition into being a gas. However, what we see, there are liquids that are more or less volatile than others, and liquids that are more volatile will just evaporate constantly, and they don't have to be fully excited to their boiling point to evaporate. They'll just continuously evaporate. And some liquids are less volatile, and for the most part, at a standard temperature and pressure that is below the boiling point, they will not evaporate, at least not so much. But that's where we get into the analogy that becomes applicable to quantum mechanics. The way I understand it is that even below the boiling point, at a liquid that is considered non-volatile, there are still going to be some molecules that can, uh, from our perception, kind of spontaneously become more excited and just evaporate into a gas. So,
So
like,
it's like fluid
when you're,
dynamics.
yeah, like when your clothes are wet, right? And then you're hanging them out to dry, and you're not necessarily heating them up to a boiling point, but over time, the liquid in the clothes, as long as it's not too saturated, they will evaporate into the air anyway, even though it's not an especially volatile liquid,
Yeah.
right? So just
So
that
so it's just you're saying
probability,
that the probability of it behaving differently. Okay.
and
Interesting
it
stuff.
just manifests over time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. And I guess what your point is, like with the quantum tunneling, it just kind of bypasses the time factor and kind of
Even though we have these ideas of, like, this is a barrier, like this is the temperature range where a transition should occur, but
mhm.
you are still getting some transition below what we recognize as that barrier of the actual temperature transition range.
Yeah.
Well, and pressure too, because
Gotcha.
you know.
So we were talking also about the quantum entanglement and we never really resolved that. So in the meantime, I found a video hopefully this one will be like a cartoonish enough for me to understand. I only understand cartoons, but
Well, you should definitely understand the Bible then.
yeah, man. Jesus is the best cartoon character in the world, man. Hold on, let's see. All right.
Imagine that you're on a long drive when you suddenly hear your stomach begin to grumble. You decide to head to a fast food drive-thru and you order a hot dog and a hamburger. They are put in similar boxes and handed to you through the window. You have no way of knowing which box has the hot dog and which has the burger. Obviously, once you open one of the boxes and see a burger, you will immediately know that the other one has the hot dog. This means that the hot dog and the burger are entangled in a certain way. This is roughly the idea upon which quantum entanglement is based. Look around you. Everything you see, perceive, and interact with in the real world follows the rules of classical mechanics. This is a study of the motion of bodies in accordance with the general principles first laid down by Sir Isaac Newton. But what about objects that are really, really small? Do they also follow these same laws of classical mechanics? Believe it or not, the answer is no. When things get that small, quantum mechanics takes over, and things start to get extremely weird. Quantum mechanics is the language of tiny particles like photons, the particles that make up light, and the particles inside an atom, such as protons, neutrons, and electrons. To give you a rough idea as to the size of these particles, consider this. The tip of a needle is so large that it could fit billions of electrons. That is how incredibly small electrons truly are. Now that you have a general idea of the size of electrons, let's talk about identities. If someone were to ask, "Who are you?" what would you say? Probably your name, right? Now, let's assume that an anthropomorphic raccoon from another planet asks you the same question. What would you say then? Perhaps, "I am Peter Quill, a human from Earth." In this case, you specified 3 levels of identification. Similarly, in a 3D space, X, Y, and Z coordinates are used to specify an object's exact location, as no 2 objects can have the same X, Y, and Z coordinates. If you consider a 4-dimensional space, with time, t, as an additional dimension, then no 2 particles can have the same 4 coordinates. In the same way, an electron has 4 levels of identification, consisting of 4 quantum numbers. Every electron within an atom has a unique set of quantum numbers. No 2 electrons can share the same combination of 4 quantum numbers. Electrons can be identified using these 4 quantum numbers, which are called the principal quantum number, the orbital angular momentum quantum number, the magnetic quantum number, and the electron spin quantum number.
We're going to have a quiz.
Who's coming in the drive?
When this is over, we're going to have a test.
These quantum numbers are very
Yeah, make sure you ask Alex.
as they help determine the electron configuration of an atom and the probable location of electrons within that atom. However, for the scope of this video, we're only going to talk about the electron spin quantum number. The definition of spin is the intrinsic value of the angular momentum of a fundamental particle. An electron can either have a positive spin, called spin up, or a downward spin, called spin down. Now, this is where things get bizarre. When we say an electron has a positive spin or a negative spin, it doesn't mean that the electron is actually spinning. Although it does have angular momentum and proper magnetic orientation, it's not exactly spinning. It may actually exist in a state of superposition, when it has both a negative and positive spin. You may find the idea of superposition confusing because this doesn't seem to go along with our perception of the real world. To help explain this a bit better, here's a famous example for understanding superposition. You might have heard of Schrödinger's cat. This is a famous thought experiment devised by Austrian-Irish physicist Erwin Schrödinger. It goes something like this. Imagine that you put a cat inside an opaque, soundproof box, along with a radioactive substance, a vial of poison, and a Geiger counter. If the radioactive substance decays, then the Geiger counter triggers a setup that releases the poison, thus killing the cat. However, the decay of the substance is a random process, so there's no way to predict when it will happen. And that is why, before opening the box, you can say it is in a superposition of being both alive and dead at the same time. In the same way, when a coin spins on a flat surface, it's in a state of superposition between its two heads and tails.
Oh, I just
Similarly,
talked about that
electrons
yesterday.
in their natural state exist as a superposition of both up and down spin. Only when measured do they give a definite value of up or down, which, in technical terms, is referred to as the collapse of the wave function. In quantum mechanics, wave function collapse occurs when a wave function, which was initially in a superposition of a few states, reduces to a single state due to interaction with the external world. When a pair of electrons are generated, interact, or share spatial proximity, their spin states can get entangled, which is what scientists call the quantum entanglement of electrons. Once the electrons are entangled, the two electrons can only have opposite spins. That is, if one is measured to have upspin, the second immediately becomes downspin. Now, we know that the two electrons, unmeasured, do not have a single spin, but a superposition of both up and down spin. If we were to separate the two electrons arbitrarily far, say, we put one in a physics lab on Earth and another in a different lab somewhere in the Andromeda galaxy, and we measure the spin of the electron on Earth, we will immediately know the measurement of the one in the Andromeda galaxy. For example, if we measure the Earth electron to have upspin, we immediately know that the other electron has downspin. This information traveled instantaneously, faster than the speed of light. As one can imagine, this idea greatly bothered famous physicist Albert Einstein. It was such a disturbing realization, in fact, that he called this phenomenon spooky action at a distance. So how can this spooky action at a distance be useful to us? Well, let's start with one of the most common everyday objects, the clock. Having a common synchronized clock is very important in today's world. They keep things in line, like stock markets and GPS systems. Today, we have extremely precise clocks, known as atomic clocks. The quantum logic clock at the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, IST, in Colorado will neither lose nor gain 1 second in some 33 billion years.
Damn.
Entangled atomic systems would not be preoccupied with local differences and would instead solely measure the passage of time, effectively bringing them together as a single pendulum. That means adding 100 times more atoms into an entangled clock would make it 100 times more precise. Entangled clocks would even be linked to form a worldwide network that would measure time independent of location, vastly expanding the technology of GPS systems and telecommunication. Then, of course, there's quantum cryptography. As a kid, did you ever make up a secret code language that only you and your best friend could understand? Imagine that, but with the key to cracking the code being randomly polarized photons entangled with each other. That is quantum cryptography. Today, some tech companies use QKD, quantum key distribution, to design ultra-secure networks. In 2007, Switzerland tried out an ID Quantique product to provide a tamper-proof voting system during an election. This system promises to be highly secure because if the photons are entangled, any changes to their quantum states made by intruders would be immediately apparent to anyone monitoring the system. Researchers at Japan's Hokkaido University developed the world's first entanglement-enhanced microscope using a technique known as differential interference contrast microscopy. Using entangled photons greatly increases the amount of information the microscope can gather, as measuring one entangled photon gives information about its partner. How about quantum teleportation? Is it possible? Yes, teleportation is possible in the world of subatomic particles, but it's entirely different from the way teleportation is depicted in movies and popular culture. Quantum teleportation involves the transportation of information rather than the transportation of matter, which is the specific type of teleportation typically focused on in science fiction. Physicists continue to delve into and understand more about the capabilities of quantum entanglement. Once we are able to fully harness this knowledge, it could potentially revolutionize every aspect of our existence. Until then, we will continue to try and make sense of the principles of quantum mechanics because, let's face it, it's a strange branch of science that doesn't seem to make any sense in the real world.
Well, to me, that just kind of proves that superposition states transcend time and space. Yeah, I mean,
They're actually exploiting FM, man. They're exploiting FM to get this stuff done. Fucking
Hello,
magic.
hello, hello.
Hey,
FM,
Alex.
what?
Fucking magic.
Oh. In other words, there's a material quality to us and a non-physical quality. And apparently the non-physical quality is magical.
Exactly. Like that's what we when we were talking that time about the microtubules in the brain and how that works. Like if they found out, like they're
Yeah.
starting to really try to gather evidence to support the fact that consciousness is the result of quantum effects in the brain, kind of like in the photosynthesis in the plants, and for the longest time, scientists sort of rejected, the community sort of rejected Roger Penrose's idea because the thing is, quantum effects can only happen in very isolated areas. Like it's not really going to work in warm environments, warm, wet environments like the brain. But then if that's true, then how does photosynthesis happen? Because it's actually in plants that are in very hot conditions. So nature has figured out a way to use quantum mechanics to take shortcuts to do things. Like I said, Jesus is a genius, man. And maybe with the quantum brain stuff, it's the same sort of thing. And this is what's opened up this whole field called quantum biology. We had went over a little while back too, where birds navigate around the world using quantum entanglement and quantum tunneling for smell, and all of these really wild, ideas, are coming to light. And yeah, it's really amazing, man. And it could actually shed some light on some of the anomalies that we talk about, like with the telepathy tapes and stuff like that. Go ahead, Alex. Did you have a question?
Oh, I was saying, who was it that said?
Can't hear.
Who was it that said that? Then, God dang it!
I can hear you.
Hello, hello, testing 1 2.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Anyway.
Okay.
So what I was saying is, I can't remember who said it. It may have been Nikola Tesla. It could have been somebody else who was saying that the next level of medicine is not going to be just like a chemical, but like actually energetic, and that being able to understand diseases and potential treatment for diseases just based on energy would take us to another level of not of understanding and being able to treat diseases.
Yeah, it's really interesting. With the quantum consciousness, that's sort of supportive of like idealism and some of these ontologies and worldviews we talk about, and that's why it's really of an interest to us because quantum mechanics sort of breaks the rules that we're all used to. It's something worth looking at. And I know a lot of people don't like Sabina Hossenfelder. You guys know who she is, right?
Yeah, but who cares about the haters?
Exactly. So she kind of like talks about
They don't have any valid reason not to like her.
right, because she calls out the establishment a lot, and I was watching a video the other day that they said more and more she's starting to sound like a crazy nut. And I'm like, looking at the videos he was showing to demonstrate, and all she was really doing was really just calling out the establishment for, doing things for money instead of the science and stuff. And he's like, "You believe what she's saying?" But it's really weird. Anyways,
Yeah,
I'll play
she
this because
thinks she thinks outside of the box too much.
yeah, you can't do that in science apparently.
This is news that I certainly didn't see coming. Do you remember Roger Penrose's idea that the human brain uses quantum effects in microtubules and that those are the origin of consciousness? Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. But, well, it seems that he was right, at least about the microtubules. What the heck are microtubules? Microtubules are big molecules, basically. They are essential parts of all cells in the human body and play a big role for signal transport in the human brain. They're polymers that combine two tubes and are made of smaller components called tubulin. So the tubes are made of tubules that are made of tubulin. It's tubes all the way down, people. Roger Penrose now has this idea that consciousness can't be explained by a computable process. So there needs to be an uncomputable element in what, and that, he says, can only be the collapse of the wave function in quantum mechanics. The collapse is when a quantum distribution of possibilities collapses to one actuality. His hypothesis is that this happens in the human brain, and that's what creates conscious thought. Why the collapse of the wave function? Because we know that all the rest is computable, so that's the only place you can hide something non-computable. The problem with this idea, as many physicists have pointed out, is that the human brain is a warm and noisy place, and those are generally not very welcoming to quantum physics. There's a reason that current-day quantum computers are suspended from 3 levels of shock absorbers and cooled to a few millikelvin. It's not just because it looks impressive, though there's that. It's because otherwise the quantum effects just go away too quickly to do any computing with them. For Penrose's idea to make any sense, you'd have to have quantum effects survive in the human brain at least until a neuron has managed to fire. And the human brain is ridiculously slow in its firing. Even the most basic estimates say that it wouldn't work out. Penrose originally didn't say anything about specifically how these quantum effects should come about in the human brain, but he later teamed up with Stuart Hameroff, a neurobiologist who had this idea that it'd be the microtubules. The microtubules, Hameroff convinced Penrose, can basically synchronize due to quantum effects, and that helps the quantum effects survive for long enough to play a role in conscious thought. That still doesn't explain what any of this has to do with consciousness, but at least that'd make it plausible that the collapse of the wave function plays any role in the human brain. I've heard more than one person say, what a pity that Penrose fell for this crazy Hameroff person. But well, I've met both Penrose and Hameroff, and they're both crazy, of course, but neither of them is stupid. So what are we to make of this microtubule business? Now comes this new paper from a group that doesn't seem to have anything to do with
Hey man, that microtubule stuff drives people crazy, man. That guy, Michael Shermer, he's like runs Skeptic magazine, and he's one of the biggest critics of this whole theory. I think one time he said, if I hear microtubule one time come out of a scientist's mouth, I'm going to probably end up strangling somebody. Because he said it's just so
well, that's very crazy. That's very crazy for him to say, because I forget this dude's name, the anesthesiologist. Is that actually that guy or not? Anyway, I forget his name, but he says that when you put a person under anesthesia, they found out that it actually targets the microtubules, and then the person loses consciousness. So to say that there isn't some kind of correlation between consciousness and microtubules is stupid.
It's stupid. Yeah, like what's so wrong with that? I don't get it.
So she's right. He might be crazy, but he ain't stupid. And that's just stupid because you're closing yourself off from exploring in an area that you just don't want to accept because it destroys your worldview. And that's not a valid enough reason to write something off.
Right. It's just because it doesn't fit the materialistic paradigm, most likely.
And that's not science, that's dogmatism, and you might as well call yourself a religion at that point.
Exactly. There you go.
Either Penrose or Hameroff, and they say that they have clear evidence that these microtubules actually do display real quantum effects. More specifically, it's a process called superradiance. It basically requires the molecules to have quantum links to each other to achieve a larger emission of light. They first built a computer model for how the tubulin molecules combine to microtubules and how they would absorb light. Then they also tested this in the laboratory and they found good agreement. Both theoretically and experimentally, they say that yes, these tubules can display quantum effects. They didn't actually test it in a cell, just in a solution, but it's at room temperature, and they say the super-radiant effect basically doesn't care about the environmental noise. This is very interesting, just because it's an example for quantum-enhanced effect that seems to be unexpectedly robust. I'd be surprised if not the quantum computing people will try to use it. Another interesting part of the paper is that they say that the quantum effects in these microtubules can do something else, which is that they become much more efficient at absorbing ultraviolet light and redistributing it to lower energies. That is, they basically protect cells from the potential harm of ultraviolet light. In the press release, the researchers say if these quantum effects fail, that might play a role for degenerative brain diseases. I'm somewhat skeptical about this, but then this isn't my research area. What does any of this have to do with consciousness? Nothing really. The last time I looked, we did need brain cells for consciousness. There seems to be a big logical gap between there are quantum effects in human brains and quantum effects create consciousness. Though, come to think of it, maybe the time has come for a quantum consciousness startup. I recently read a paper saying that large language models are currently...
She's going to do that ad. Yeah, so the reason why it has everything to do with consciousness is because that book she had showed at the very beginning, The Emperor's New Mind, that's what started the whole thing, was that quantum effects in the brain would cause consciousness, like if a wave collapses, that, like, you know how a lot of people out here, especially in the I guess consciousness community, like in the more spiritual side of it, they always say that oh, well, you know, the observer effect, you know, like you have to observe a particle for it to or a wave for it to collapse. So their whole theory was like that just proves that consciousness causes wave collapse. So, you know, from that you can sort of like build a theory that maybe the whole universe is being collapsed by some super consciousness like God or something like that. But what Roger Penrose was saying in his book was it's actually the other way around. Actually, the wave function, when it collapses, it causes the conscious moments to appear, you know. So it's the other way around, which, you know, and then I think Stuart Hameroff has a view that there may be, like, before the Big Bang, there's this consciousness that observed a particle, and then it expanded into the universe. And then from there, henceforward, every time a wave collapses in the microtubules of the brain has a conscious moment because it's getting the information from that universe. It's like some kind of frequency is, the microtubules pick up on high frequencies, and if they're strong enough, they sort of orchestrate with all the different microtubules in your brain to create like a unified conscious experience at every moment and second. So that's kind of
Strength in numbers.
right. So that's what I don't think she understands that part though. I don't know.
Well, she's skeptical. I mean, and she said it's not her field of study, so I guess she just doesn't want to really.
Go ahead, Alex. Were you going to say something?
I was just saying that at least she acknowledges what her specialty is. She acknowledges like the gaps in her knowledge, and so that's why I believe we like Sabine, is because she makes every effort, as far as we can tell, to be honest and rational.
Right. She doesn't just roll over and accept everything that comes down the line. And you got to do that because there's a lot of people out here trying to sell books and sell videos and have like these, appeal to people that, like we were talking about last week, with the the nuns, like these people that are spiritual, they don't want to be part of religion, but there's a lot of people that are like into yoga and into alternative religious views, and a lot of this stuff sort of supports that. And so you can sell a whole lot of books off this quantum consciousness stuff. They've been doing that since the 70s, maybe even before that, and a lot of it was just bunk. It had no evidence.
I don't know if they called it the same thing back then, but
yeah, my dad showed me a book and it came out in the 70s. I forgot what it was called, but he used to read it and he wanted me to read it, and it was basically saying that quantum mechanics was proof of souls and spirits and stuff like that or whatever. But and then there's this other guy who talks about biocentrism. So he believes in like a multiverse. So every time you die, anytime someone dies, they pop into another universe. And he uses quantum mechanics to back that stuff up. I'm just not sure how
Well, I would definitely say that when you die, you definitely pop into a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I could definitely say that I've experienced that on DMT for sure. Or even when I have the little psychic shit that happens to me, that's like your perspective just instantly shifts, and it's not a thing that I initiate. It's just something that happens to me. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like you're like information that hits you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just changes your perspective within a split second.
Exactly. That's why people like Stuart Hameroff actually get along with people like Deepak Chopra, as Caleb mentioned. Deepak Chopra comes to mind. So let me just show you something real quick.
I can't lie, I have no idea who that is.
You don't know who Deepak Chopra is? Okay. Yeah, you should really check him out. He's he's been a real big name.
What is he? What?
He's like an Indian scientist, doctor, and now he's more or less like he teaches quantum consciousness and mystical experiences, and he goes into a lot of that. He's real popular. I'm surprised you never heard of him. He's like a household name. But yeah, we're gonna need to definitely get familiar with him.
Well, I guess I ain't part of the household.
Damn it! What household are you in, man? But yeah, here's him talking.
I'm in my
him
own.
through NPR.
Oh, really? He's a smart guy. A lot of people.
Maybe I've seen him or whatever, and just don't know his name. So let's check him out.
Yeah.
So, you know, people like Richard Dawkins, who I had a run-in with, people like Michael Shermer, who heads a Society for Skeptics, who had to debate at Caltech, listening to me.
Michael Shermer, that's the one I told you doesn't want to hear about microtubules no more.
They frequently
Yeah,
said
I definitely don't know
you
Deepak.
misuse science to propagate your theories. And now that I'm having a conversation with a professor, a scientist, an anesthesiologist who puts people to sleep and
wakes
wakes them up afterwards, what would you say to these guys who say you're full of it?
They're full of it, and
No, they're saying you're full of it.
Well, they're full of it. That's what I'm saying, because their solution to the hard problem is to ignore it, or to say, well, it emerges at a higher order complexity. Don't bother me with the details; that'll come along, or to pretend it doesn't exist. So their approach is to look at the brain as a computer and pretend the problem of consciousness that we're discussing doesn't exist whatsoever. So if you have the machinery to do what the brain does, then you have consciousness along with it, and that could be true. That is true if you include the quantum properties, but they're cutting it off at the level, not only at the level of classical versus quantum, but at the level of neurons versus going inside neurons. So I think they're missing the boat entirely, and there's so many questions they couldn't answer, but they won't debate me. They criticize me, and I've challenged them to debate me, and they always chicken out.
I highly doubt that.
Is the universe conscious?
I would say it's proto-consciousness. It's kind of dreaming. It has this pure consciousness perhaps built into it, but without the snapshots of awareness. That only happens when this particular type of self-collapse or objective reduction.
So something is dreaming up the universe.
Well, you could say that. Or
could we call it God?
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think, when you talk about God and spirituality, I think of three things. There's interconnectedness among living beings, which you can explain through quantum entanglement. There's the ability to access and be influenced by cosmic wisdom, if you will, divine guidance or following the way of the Tao. And, Penrose put these Platonic values, or proposed that these Platonic values, including mathematical truth, aesthetic, and ethical values, are built into the universe, the Planck scale, as patterns. And our conscious thoughts are influenced by these Platonic values. So it's conceivable that we have influence by this cosmic wisdom, if you will. And the third thing would be, afterlife that we've talked about, that the possibility that consciousness can exist after the body dies, at least temporarily, and perhaps be recycled in reincarnation.
So there's cosmic wisdom, there's cosmic immortality, and there's cosmic truth, goodness, harmony, and evolution, and that's God.
Well, we hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Deepak Chopra. How you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, thanks
just
for
jumped
bringing
in.
that name up. Thanks for bringing that name up, so we could introduce Sophia to Deepak Chopra.
Well, it's when you mentioned people just wanting to create money in books due to the quantum mechanics, he came to mind.
Yeah. Because there's even what they call. He's like a word salad guy. Like he
No,
says
word salad guy.
Yeah, like they even have this damn, what's it called? It's called a quote generator. And the Deepak Chopra the wisdom generator or something like that. And it always pops up all these quotes by Deepak Chopra. It is really hilarious, though.
The term that I like that Daniel Dennett came up with was deepities.
Yeah, deepities, right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, quote generator, like it's random. Like here, I'll play it real quick.
Well, guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but my sinuses are acting up, and I'm gonna have to sign off for today. And I guess I'll catch y'all next week.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna stay on just for a little bit. My sinuses are killing me too, man. And yeah, it's almost 2 hours, so yeah. Quote generator, like one. Our consciousness alleviates precious choices. What? Receive more wisdom. Perceptual reality experiences positive force fields. Wow. Your body differentiates into total acceptance of success. Like, and it just goes on and on. You can like generate all these weird deepities, you know.
Well,
But
I mean, on some level, you might be able to compare that to other works, like texts such as like the
yeah,
Confucianist like texts, all the quotes that he came up with that uh, eventually collected into kind of like a religion of Confucianism.
yeah,
And there's also like the I Ching, the Book of Changes or whatever, um, and stuff like that, where people might use these works almost like a divination type thing. They will like flip flip coins to come up with a section of this work that may or may not have relevance to the situation that they're experiencing.
yeah, yeah. And you know, it's just the fact that people we have a large population of people that just don't want to question things and they just want to believe stuff because they believe in belief, like Daniel Dennett says, you know, like they just they believe in belief itself. And so, you know, they're it's very easy to sell books to these folks and stuff like that. And you know, and I consider myself an open-minded person. Like, you know, there's a lot of things I want to understand about reality, and I already have some probably what most people would consider weird beliefs, anyways. But I'm not willing to just, you know, accept these beliefs just based on the fact that they make me feel good, or I try not to. Maybe that's really the case, but I try not to be that way, you know.
Yeah, I
With
mean, I try to be open minded, but it's like, when I'm kind of sad Sophia left, because it's like she's a great example of where it's like she says that she has these experiences where she's
Mhm.
had dreams of people who died, and it's like there's this connection she has,
Mhm.
and it's like for me who never has had such an experience, it's like I can't it's like I can't bring myself to believe that. It's
Right.
almost like trying to wrap my mind around how a trans person experiences reality. I can't,
Right.
I
Right.
don't know
It's
what that
understandable.
is like.
Yep.
So it's like, to me, it's like I've never had a reason to believe in an afterlife. And it's like, I'm not going to invalidate her experience. It's just, I've never had that experience myself.
Yeah, and that's the whole principle of mysticism, anyways, is that you don't believe in other people's experiences. You believe in your own. You know, you don't you you know, because then it's dogma. Anytime you're just accepting somebody's, you know, ex- gospel truth, that becomes a dogma, you know, and even your own experiences, you know, for every person they have to kind of like, you know, there's epistemic um tools you can use to kind of see whether my experience is what how it really impresses upon me. Like there could be people that when they look at clocks, they see like 1-1 on the clock. Every time they tend to look at a clock, they see the magic number 1-1, like it's 11 o'clock or 3:11 or 4:11. Really weird. But you know, maybe they're just counting the hits and dismissing the misses. You know, it's like maybe they really look at clocks all the time and it's never on 11, but they only remember the times they look at the clock where it says 3:11 or 11:11 or whatever. And so they only count the hits and they're not really taking in consideration how many times they actually looked at the clock to do a statistical analysis of it, you know. So there's things you can do to kind of test your own experiences to make sure that you're not misattributing those. But from what I know about not just Sophia, but also like with my sister, she's the same way. My mom's the same way. There's a lot of weird things. Even my father. I had a conversation with my father. Now, my dad, he's the kind of person who doesn't really talk a lot about this kind of stuff. Like he doesn't really like this topics. He's kind of like one of these down to earth. He's logical guy. He's a computer programmer. He doesn't really
Oh,
resonate with any of this shit. Like he
so
doesn't really
he
get it.
doesn't like talking about metaphysical stuff,
No, 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 no.
abstract
For the most
stuff,
part,
like
no.
spiritual. Okay, gotcha.
But every once in a while, something will happen, and then
Mhm.
he'll let you know something really weird. And it's so weird because my dad's kind of older. He's like 80 something years old now.
Mhm.
But throughout my life, like every once in a while, he'll tell you something that's like, what? Did you just really say that? Like he has these experiences, and my sister has them really heavily. My sister actually went into cardiac arrest and died like I think 3 times now in her life.
Shit.
And each time she's reported like a near-death experience. And she has these premonitions ever since she's had those near-death experiences. She reports these premonitions, and they always come through. Like it's so weird. And I always used to be like, well, that's kind of a coincidence. But then it happens again and again and again, and it's almost like redundant now. It's like I can't go over there without hearing a story or even seeing something myself, like after what she told me. It's really weird. So there's a lot of weird stuff out there that's not I would say easily debunkable with people like that. Um, so that's kind of what kind of led me down the path of considering some alternate views on how reality might work, just to kind of like dip my toe in the water, so to speak, and take a look at what I can find out that's actually out there.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's a lot of strange things in reality. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, like this goes back to like whole atheism versus theism. It's like there's thousands upon thousands of people out there who say that they have a religious experience with God. And it's like, but then there's a bunch of atheists who are like, I've never experienced that. Why should I believe that? And it's just like
Yeah.
the subjective experience of each human is just, it's going to be vastly different, and it's
Yeah,
we
I
we
looked
hit,
into that. Yeah, that's always been a question of mine because like I've never seen ghosts. I've never seen these things, and I've never had these experiences everybody keeps talking about. And I always wonder why does it happen to you guys, but for someone who doesn't really believe in that stuff, why doesn't it ever happen to me? And so I've talked to a lot of people to try to find out what the answer to that question is. And the only answers I keep getting back is like, well, your mind, your perception of reality sort of consolidates what you experience. So basically, if you're shut down to certain ideas, you're never going to see it. So it's kind of like the Monroe Institute. I started doing some research into the Monroe Institute, and I might actually go up there on my vacation time this year. But there's this institute
that'd
called
be
the
cool.
Monroe Institute where they train you to actually do remote viewing and have these out-of-body experiences and stuff I've never had. But I had one the other day. I got to tell you all about that. But anyways,
Okay.
before that, I was like, well, I want to, because I've never had it. I don't understand what these people are really talking about. I mean, I understand it on paper, but I don't, you know. But anyways, Monroe Institute, you can actually go up there for a week in a cabin, and they have these professional trainers. They have government people that go there all the time, in and out. They have a contract with the CIA and all these different people that test for remote viewing, which blew my mind. I was like, is that really real, though? And then come to find out, yeah, it's actually a real thing. So I went ahead and looked on their website, and I went ahead and considered it. I haven't bought the ticket yet, but I was thinking about going there and just testing it out for myself to see what's really going to happen. Just as a skeptic, just go in there as a skeptic, see what's going to happen. But on the website, and in the training videos, they say, when you do this, you have to really just relax. Don't Don't believe it. You don't have to believe it's going to happen, but don't not believe it either. Like, you just have to be really neutral and relaxed and have no expectations, and then it'll happen for you. And so I was going to give that a try. But anyways, back to the thing. The other night, someone told me to try this thing called HemiSync, which is this video. You can get them on YouTube anywhere, and they're like HemiSync videos. You put these headphones on, and it's actually what the Monroe Institute does, is it produces these certain tones in your ear, and it's supposed to give you an out-of-body experience where you can actually float out of your body, so to speak, and view your house and view anything you want. And I thought, yeah, this is bullshit, so let me try it. So I went ahead and tried it, and man, in like 10 minutes I was like coming out of my body, dude, and it was the weirdest fucking thing in the world. And I had this feeling of falling back into my body. Like, once I left, I panicked because I wasn't expecting it. I swear to God, I wasn't expecting anything. I was just thinking I'm going to fall asleep to this shit. So when it happened, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? I was looking around like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, boom, I slammed back into my, the impression is I fell and slammed into my body. And dude, I couldn't sleep the rest of that night, man. It terrified me, man. It was like the weirdest thing. And I've had night paralysis, dream paralysis. I've had that before. And it's totally different. This is totally different than that. Like, I used to play with dream paralysis all the time. I could trigger it. Like, because I had to work midnight shift when I used to work at the state police. So I used to go on walks, and I used to go on the top of the floor, and there's like this nursing station, and you could get in the bed and take a nap. But you'd always be kind of nervous because it's real creepy in there. It's an old building, and it's dark. So I'd be like half asleep, half awake. And when you're in that REM sleep state, you get into night terrors. You get into a paralysis where you can't move, but you see all these people and figures and things, and you'd come out of it, and I'd be like, damn, what the hell was that? So I would do it again every night. I would just practice it, and then I could just do it on command. I got really good at it. But this out-of-body thing, though, totally different. I'll just tell you like that. Nothing like that at all. Like, I don't know what that was. That was some weird shit right there. I don't know. And I haven't tried it since. But I'm gonna try it again. I'll probably try it again tonight or something. I don't know.
Well, I could take a stab at exploring the concept as someone who also does not have a gift like some people claim to have, or might have some ability to demonstrate that, such as Sophia. Sophia and I have talked about her experiences, and I do believe that she has a gift. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
But
Can you give
just
examples?
from like a theoretical, just like the example with her dad. She had kind of strained relationship with her dad. I don't want to get into too much detail, but she was able to sense like the actual time when he was on his deathbed, and some of the thoughts and the feelings that he had in his final moments, not even having been in contact with him for a while. And she didn't learn, as a matter of fact, that he had passed until like a week or so later. But at that time, when he was right there on the threshold of life and death, she felt that. She shared that experience with him, and she even she said that she felt how he had some kind of remorse about the way that that he had treated her and was saying that to her, like basically psychically, I'm sorry, you were right, I was wrong, you know, and I hope you can forgive me and stuff.
On the same
You know,
day, and she didn't have any idea.
right, and even though I can't objectively verify that, I feel that, and I do accept that to be true.
Well, the same thing happened to my mom when I was a kid. It was in 1984,
Hmm.
and I was We drove from Florida. My dad got a job up in Virginia, and my grandma was in really bad health. My mom's mom, and
Hmm.
she was in bad health. but we went to, but we didn't think she was going to die or anything. Like, it wasn't that bad. So we went to Virginia, and then just in the middle of the night, my mom just got up and started screaming and crying. And she was like, "My mom is dead. She just died." And my dad was like, "What the hell are you talking about? Go back to bed." And everybody was trying to tell her, "Go back to bed. We're trying to sleep." And she's like, "No, no, no." And she got on the phone and called her sister. And her sister said, "How did you know she just died? She just died. Like, I was just about to call you." And it was really weird. And that was just one episode that my mom went. I mean, my mom's had all kinds of stuff like that really freaked us out, man. And my sister sort of inherited that same issue because she has the same things happen to her all the time. It's like every day it's a new story with her. So it's
Hmm.
kind of weird, man. I
So
don't really say I know what it is. I just say I don't know what it is, you know.
so I just wanted to share my tentative theoretical understanding of this phenomenon. And,
Yeah.
basically, my understanding is that it it is based on number one, experience, but number two, understanding. So people who are theistic or like religious or spiritual minded, right? They can say, "Oh, I had this religious experience, so I know certain things to be true." However, that's their experience. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is understanding. Like you might experience something, but if your level of understanding is not at a certain threshold, then you might actually misinterpret the experience that you're having, and you're saying it's this when in actuality it's something else, right?
Yeah.
So just because somebody who is like Christian, for an example, has a religious experience, and then they claim that yes, they had a connection with God, and it was with Jesus, right? That just because they had that experience, that doesn't mean that it was that particular uh, deity, that particular anthropomorphic God. You know,
Right.
it could have been
Right.
like
Well, there's
a
a philosophy
connection
of
with the primordial consciousness or whatever, but it's not necessarily anthropomorphic.
like perennialist philosophy. And I had Jim Bob on, I think, a
Hmm.
few shows ago, and his view in the perennialist philosophy is that basically all religious experience or mystical experiences, according to philosophy, like if you look it up in the Stanford Encyclopedia under the heading of religious experience, I think they don't call it mystical experience; they call it religious. And I think it's
Okay.
like in the second paragraph, something like that. It goes into, according to Perennialist philosophy, it's considered a normative. So it's like it's a normal thing. So it's justified. It's valid as a real thing because it happens over time in different cultures. Now, the questions that are posed is like, well, why does a Christian who is opposed to a Muslim, both of them have religious experience? So you do this outside
Hmm.
test of faith to say, well, there's got to be something wrong there, because how can Muslims have the religious experience but also the Christian if one of those religions is wrong or both of them are wrong? And so the Perennialist philosophy is to say that no, religions are man-made, but they're all centered on some of the core truths of human experience. So it's like some of the truths like, do unto others, the golden rules, and also oneness with the universe, oneness with God, or whatever. These experiences are open to anyone, regardless of your religious affiliation or words that you want to put behind your belief system. That doesn't matter. The commonality is, the experience itself. So the attribution, they say, is wrong. The people are attributing their gods as the source of these experiences, but that's after the fact. Like, none of these reports are said. It's kind of like a dream, like you have a dream. You don't really make sense of the dream until you wake up. When you wake up, then you have to explain what the dream meant. But
yeah, and
during the
if
dream,
if you wait too much time after
forget.
you wake up, and then your mind will automatically start to alter details of it
Right,
to
'cause that's what
to
the brain
fit
does. Right.
a cohesive narrative. So
That's
so
right.
the best way to remember your dream upon waking up, and it can be
Write it
difficult
down.
sometimes with life being chaotic, but no, there's a specific process that I learned, and it involves you have to try as best as you can to wake up very gently and smoothly, right? You have to, before you even start moving, because as soon as you start moving when you wake up, you're forgetting details of your dream.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to rehearse the dream as you remembered it the instant you wake up before you start moving. All right. And then you might say it out loud to yourself, like at least one time. Right. And then you just very slowly you start to sit up, and like ideally you might have like a dream journal like right beside your pillow or
You gotta
under
write
your
it
pillow
down.
or something.
Yeah, you need
So
to
yeah,
write it.
you could write it down immediately so that you don't alter any of those details. And then every little detail from your dream can be relative to the message that your subconscious mind is trying to convey to your conscious mind.
Well, here's the other thing
Because
too.
yeah,
There's
go ahead.
another factor in this that a lot of and it kind of like makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's just a hard truth about this whole thing that a lot of people don't really want to deal with, but it's key to doing this shit. When you go to the Monroe Institute website, one of the instructors there is called Thomas Campbell. And Thomas Campbell was recently on the Joe Rogan show, and he kind of explained it there too. And he says, you have to understand how the brain works. He goes, the thing is, you've got the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain. The left side of your brain processes all of your logical thinking, planning, abstractions, things like that, to get things done. It's very important. The other side of your brain, the right side, is your creative side, your intuitive side. It's more like where spiritual people lean towards. They're more left or right brain people, right? So he was saying everybody's got this little, more or less you're somewhere on the spectrum. You're probably either more left-brained or more right-brained or somewhere in the middle. So he said the key is, if you're going to have these experiences, if you really want to have these mystical experiences and have some kind of experience yourself, you have to understand that your right side of your brain is always at war with your left side. They're always at war. So even if you got into a meditative state, let's say, just as a bad example, I want to see my dead Uncle Bob, and I want to talk to him. And then all of a sudden you start talking to him. Well, automatically that left side of your brain is going to jump in and be like, is that you that's really saying that, or is that really Uncle Bob? Come on, man. And it's going to always shoot it down. It's always going to dismiss it. And the reason why is because we've built up the muscle, We've in the West, in America, you know, in the West, in Europe, things like that, we're more left brain people because from the time we're born, we go to school, we're taught certain things in our social society that really emphasizes logic. It emphasizes critical thinking, which is good, which is a really good thing. You know, they say that's a really good thing, but there's no real balance. Like the right side of your brain is never given any sort of credence. Like no one really cares about your creativity,
Well,
your intuition.
the very first things to be on the chopping block in education is always the humanities. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So that's what it is.
Creativity.
Right. So he says it takes a little time. Like he said, if you really want to have this mystical experience, you have to train your right side of your brain to be more open. You have to kind of like stop letting the left bully side of your brain bully you out of these experiences, because that's what it's going to do. He says, and he mentioned that, Alex, exactly what you're talking about. He says, you ever notice when you have a dream and you're like, wow, that was a very profound dream. And he says, all of a sudden you start forgetting the dream and stuff. He goes, that's kind of like your left side of your brain pushing it out, saying, look, forget about that shit. That's not important. What we need to think about now is putting your pants on, putting your shoes on, getting in the car, going to work, doing your thing. Like that's the function of the left side of your brain. That's what it does. And we've built that muscle up so strong that really most people don't experience the things. That's why, you know, and I don't hope I don't sound sexist or anything, but a lot of these mystical experiences happen with women because women are very right-brained inclined from what the research says. Most men are very logical from what I've been told. And that would explain why a lot of men don't have these sort of experiences. That's why I have a theory, like, most men that go to church is because their women made them.
You're getting canceled out here, Scott.
I know I'm gonna be canceled soon. I can't make it. All these this new generation. I can't be a bigot no more. Damn it. But that's pretty much it. Anyways, guys, I gotta get out of here, man. My sinuses are killing me. I gotta take my meds and maybe.
No, my eyes have been itching. That's why I've been poking at them. So yeah.
It's crazy, man. All right.
Well, it's been a good show. I think thanks for joining us today, Caleb.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Glad to be part of it.
Man. We'll talk to y'all later. Till next weekend.
All right.
All right. Take it easy, y'all.